Hey guys, Zach from the barbellphysio.com here. I'm going to start doing a weekly Periscope on Thursdays. We're going to call it my Thursday Thoughts, where I answer questions, maybe go on a little rant. We'll see what happens. Hopefully mine can be as good as my friend Jeff Moore's daily rants. Hey Dave, thanks for joining in. Today I'm going to answer a reader question. Let me pull his question up. Jeff asks, my rectus femoris is deathly tight on both sides. How do I loosen this off so I can squat better? So I wanted to go through kind of my thoughts on rectus femoris tightness and the squat. We're going to start anatomy lesson. This is the rectus femoris. It's one of the 4 quadricep muscles. It's actually the only quadricep muscle that crosses both the hip and the knee. So the rectus femoris inserts on what we call the anterior inferior iliac spine above the hip, and then inserts down here onto the tibia, meaning it has 2 functions. When it activates, it can cause some knee extension. It can also flex the hip. So if we wanted to stretch the rectus femoris, what we're going to do, a standard stretch for stretching the rectus femoris is a prone quad stretch, where we've got the hip extended, so the hip's extended there, and the knee flexed. That's typically how you're going to stretch it. So let's look at the squat here. In a squat, we've got knee flexion, but we also have hip flexion. So to me, when we're talking about rectus femoris tightness, it's not something that I typically think is going to affect the squat very much, if at all, because the rectus femoris is stretched on its distal end around the knee, but is actually slacked up at the hip. So the net overall change in muscle length of the rectus femoris when you're standing versus when you're in the bottom of the squat is pretty low. So Jeff, for those reasons, I typically don't think of the rectus femoris as being a muscle that's going to really impact squat depth as far as tightness goes. You'll find some people that have rectus femoris tightness and overall knee stiffness, so they may not have maximum knee flexion range of motion. And I think it's the knee flexion range of motion itself that's going to impact the squat more than that specific rectus femoris tightness. That doesn't mean that stretching your rectus femoris and all your quads and knee flexors, knee flexion in general out isn't going to help your squat. It just means I don't think that the rectus femoris itself is going to be the cause of your squat being a little dysfunctional on the mobility end of things. So that's the one question I had to answer today. If anybody